Emma's Adventure. We lived in Cholila, New Mexico, nestled in the beautiful Manzano Mountains, about 25 miles southeast of Albuquerque. Our rambling adobe was built beside a small stream with an apple tree in the yard. There were 11 children in our family, so I'm sure we were poor, but we didn't know it. We lived off the rocky land, except for a small salary my father earned as principal of the school. My parents relied on God, and every year he pulled us through. We were a very happy family. In the spring of 1914, Mama and Daddy had taken us to Albuquerque for a Wild West show, so when they went to visit relatives in Escobosa one Sunday in June, we decided to put on our own show. They left Archie 11 in charge of me, Emma 9, and Robert 6. They took the rest of the children, who weren't as vocal about wanting to stay home. We watched until the wagon was out of sight and hopefully out of hearing range. Then Archie picked up the rifle Daddy had given him and told us, "I'll be the sharp shooter. Emma is the pretty girl, I like that, and Robert will be the audience." He then took an old hat and placed it on my pigtailed head and told me to stand next to a large pinon tree. Very seriously, he said, "Now don't move." I looked over at Robert, who had a very worried look on his face and his hands over his ears. Only then did I begin to get a funny feeling inside. "Are you sure you can do this?" I asked, remembering a hat being shot off a lady's head in the show. "Of course," he said with confidence. "Haven't you seen me kill squirrels and deer and shoot bottles off the fence? I hardly ever miss." That sounded pretty good to me, but still I asked, "Do you think Daddy will get mad?" "No," he told me, "I am almost as good a shot as he is." So I stood as straight as I could, squeezed my eyes shut, and put my fingers in my ears. The next thing I remember is feeling the ground under me and Robert crying, "Is she dead? If she's dead, you're gonna get it." I opened my eyes to see two very white-faced boys kneeling next to me. "Am I shot?" I asked shakily. "I don't see any blood. I think you fainted," Archie said with much less confidence than before. Daddy might never have suspected a thing, except that he found the hat. He then waited till he could get Robert alone to ask him what had happened. Robert could never keep a secret. Our gentle dad never said a word to us, probably feeling we had suffered enough. But for a while, every time he looked at Archie or me, he seemed to be stifling a laugh. One of my favorite family stories took place about 1850, when my grandmother Perfecto Trujillo de Maffei had a dream. It was about the Indians attacking at Los Alamitos that same night. My great-grandfather, Jose Paul, was killed by the Indian chief. He and his guide named El Mocho went from El Rancho de Luchochos to check on his livestock, his mules and cattle he had at Los Alamitos. Near Cholila, he had a log cabin, and he told his guide, El Mocho, to stay inside of the cabin, and he went after the Indians and fought all day until the evening when the Indians retreated. At sundown, he sat down to roll a cigarette, and the Indian chief's wife came and stabbed him with an arrow. He got up and started after her. They both went all around the tree, and he fell to the ground, and then the Indians came and took his scalp. My grandfather Robert McAfee got up that morning at 4 to go to El Rio. They called Albuquerque El Rio. In those days, my grandmother told my grandfather not to go to El Rio because she had a dream about the Indians attacking at Los Alamitos and killing Jose Paul. She saw all in her dream, and about then the guide El Mocho came and told them what had happened to Jose Paul. He had been killed by the Indians that day, and my grandmother Perfecto asked El Mocho how it happened, and he told her all about it, just like she had dreamed. They called the guide El Mocho. His leg was cut off. He said after Senor Paul was dead, it started to rain big drops